What do you mean, we haven't started yet? We're here, so we've started. You just walked in the door.
I started all right. Since 6 o'clock this morning, I've been studying for midterm exams. Didn't do too well on my essay tests last time, so these coming up have got me a little bit worried.
Well, at least you picked the right time for your extracurricular worries to start.
Extracurricular? What could be more curricular than essay tests?
What Norm means is that your timing is perfect. Gwen moved up the production schedule. We have to put together a program on essay tests this week.
Oh, I know. I saw Gwen in the hall. Hey, she said that she gave you a tape for this program that might help me.
Oh, yeah. I've got it here somewhere.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Gwen.
Hi, Gwen. Hey, how's your cold?
Oh, much better. Thank you, Jenny.
Cassie, what's the problem? I thought you studied all the time.
Well, it's not that I don't know the material, Norm. It's the panic.
The panic.
Yeah, the panic. Writing against the clock. See, I look at the test question, and I start to think of the answer. But the second hand of the clock is all I can think of, going round and round. The pressure paralyzes me. Now, I would do fine if I could just answer the question in a leisurely chat with my professor in her office over coffee.
But you work under pressure on this project all the time to meet a deadline.
Yeah, but that's not the same, Norm.
Cassie is still a student, Norm.
That's right, I'm still a student, and I'm still an intern. And I know panic when I experience it. Now, what I need to know is what to do when the clock starts, or what to stop doing.
She may be the greatest resource help you could find for this script, Norm.
Help me.
Ma'am?
Truce.
All right, truce. Listen, tomorrow I'm buying lunch for a friend who made straight A's in history last semester with this same teacher.
I don't understand.
Well, see, for the price of a lunch, I'm going to find out what kinds of things this teacher wants on essay tests. A little audience analysis research.
Oh, brother. Gwen, you better get to work. We have a long day ahead of us if we're going to teach her how to save her lunch money, too. Jennifer, we're running out of time for this. Where did you lose it?
Norman Feldman. If she knew where she lost it, it wouldn't be lost.
I just don't understand this. Gwen gave me the tape in the hallway, and I came directly into here. No, I didn't. I stopped at the refrigerator to leave my lunch, and then I came right to this desk.
Jenny.
I don't understand it. I checked my desk. Huh?
What do you have in your hand?
My lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I did it again. I'll be back in a minute.
Gwen, you know that hot tape you wanted me to see?
Uh-huh.
It's been cooling all this time.
Well, as Jenny reads the refrigerator, I want you to look at this other tape first, anyway.
2 tapes on essay tests?
Mm-hmm. This script has to deal with, first, why essay tests, and second, how to take an essay test. We interviewed instructors in several fields, and the question we put to them was very simple. Essay tests, why?
I think essay tests are the best of all the kinds of tests you can give young people for a couple of reasons. One is it gives them a chance to express themselves in writing. I think that's very important because I really think the ability to write good English is perhaps the most important thing a young person can learn in college. Secondly, it forces a student to think about the material and to put it together ideally in a new way. I try to frame essay questions in order to bring out something that maybe I haven't said in class. Try to bring out a new point. I try to challenge the thinking as well as the ability to express oneself in that kind of a question.
An essay question is really, to me, a part of the real world. Later on, the student will be challenged, perhaps by a supervisor, to present his or her ideas. And this essay question is a wonderful way to do it. You have to think quickly, you have to organize your thoughts, and express them clearly. And really, that's what we're looking for as English teachers.
An essay question will test you on two levels. It will force you not only to understand what the principles of the law are and to articulate those principles in your own words so that you can show a clear comprehension, but also there's another level here, and that's the level of the facts. Do you understand the facts? Are you able to state and relate those facts to the principles of law you've learned?
Now, the student in theory has information from several sources, from me, from the textbook, from supplementary reading, from films, or whatever. So I will ask an essay question, and their task is to synthesize this information. And I'm more interested in how they do it, what skills they bring to bear, than I am the actual presentation of the information itself. And I think the essay format allows students to conceptualize their answer, put it in a coherent form under time constraint, and it sharpens mental skills and forces them in a pressure situation to do some really creative thought, synthesizing information primarily.
Cassie, does that give you some of the reasoning behind essay tests?
Well, sure. A lot of multiple choice tests only test my ability to remember facts and figures and dates.
Or
and
your ability to guess at them.
And an essay test forces me to think about what I've been taught and requires me to write about what I've learned.
Exactly. And the pressure of time makes you think more quickly and intensely.
Yeah, but that's just the point. See, when my professor says, start writing, you've got 50 minutes, I fall apart.
Well, for that you need strategy.
I need something. Maybe some practical suggestions for how to structure essay answers.
Oh, here she is.
Sorry about that. Better cold than never.
Thank you, dear. Whoa, whoa, it is cold. Well, this one has some very practical advice. Dr. Elaine Mayman is one of the authors of a very useful book called Writing in the Arts and Sciences.
Well, I just hope the interviewer gets straight to the point.
The question was, what do students need to know about essay tests?
The most enlightened ways of teaching writing depend on giving students lots of time. You don't have time in an essay test. So here are some things that students can do before they begin to write an essay test. Their studying should be their preliminary writing. They should try to guess what the instructor's questions will be. That's one of the best ways to study. In the test situation itself, the students should not try to write a draft, not try to write a full outline of the material that they want to cover. They won't have time. What they have to do is, first of all, to read the test question very carefully. Too many students fail on an essay test because they free associate to buzzwords in the question without taking a moment to think about what the question is really asking. Once they've read the question very, very carefully, students should then write a shopping list. They should do it on the inside cover of the blue book. And what I mean by a shopping list are those points identified by one or two words each that they really think they ought to cover in that answer. Then that shopping list should be there for them to look at as they go on to write the answer to the essay test. Very often, students can write a thesis sentence through rephrasing the question on the essay test, and that gets them started. Then they should look at their shopping list and continue with their answer.
Well, Cassie, there are some practical suggestions.
But no, what does she mean, rephrase the question to make a thesis sentence?
Oh, that's a technique to make sure you answer the question being asked. Can you remember a question from an earlier test?
Sure. I've got something over here in my school bag. Boo. Here's one I botched up. Discuss the differences in economic strength between the North and South, paying particular attention to industrialization.
Okay, Cassie. Now, to make sure that I don't drift away from the question, I'd use the question itself as the basis for the thesis sentence for the answer. It'd be something like this. No discussion of the differences in economic strength between the North and South would be complete without considering the North's enormous industrial advantage.
Oh, I see. Then you would make your shopping list of all the important points to support your thesis. And that is an idea that would have helped me a lot on my last test.
Cassie, do you have a copy of that last test?
Sure, but I'll have to find it.
Oh, well, if you could, Cassie, maybe we could use it and it would help focus our script for our telecourse students.
As well as help you on your next essay test.
But the point for now is that a shopping list helps you get in touch with your purpose for thinking through a question, and not just to parrot back what you think the teacher wants.
Right. The instructor already knows the information.
Yes, so you're not trying to psych out your instructor, but rather to show that you understand the material.
Yeah, but that's not easy when I know that the teacher knows a lot more than I do.
Well, Dr. Mayman addresses that point in the next segment on this tape.
So many students have writer's block because they sit there imagining, I have to write about the Civil War to Professor Jones. Professor Jones wrote a book on the Civil War. Now, what can I possibly say? So the student imagines the teacher as examiner, as the audience. And that's the kind of situation that people during the Inquisition had to face. And that is not a situation that evokes a person's best writing. So what has to happen is that the student has to imagine a different audience. Even though the teacher is going to be reading the paper, the student has to imagine that he is writing usually for his classmates. That's usually the best audience to imagine. If the student imagines that he's explaining a point to his classmates in the course that he's thought a lot about and that he wants his classmates to understand too, then the student will provide enough background information, provide enough context. If the student thinks of the professor as audience, and maybe the student's very friendly with the professor, thinks about the professor as friend, as the audience, then the student will fall into another pitfall. The student will write, now there are 3 causes for the Civil War, just as we said in class, and not bother to explain anymore, but with that passing reference, we'll think that he's done the job. Right, so imagining an audience of classmates is the best way to proceed, but it can't be classmates as they are in the luncheonette or around the jukebox or something, because it has to be classmates within the class, otherwise the level of language will be wrong. On a test, you are writing in a more formal style and you can't address your buddies in the classroom, but you're addressing people at that level of knowledge. And I think that with that idea in mind, students will find it a little easier to write.
Wow, she was talking directly to me.
Well, I hope you see now that it's more important in an essay test to read your question carefully than to try to read your teacher.
I do, but you know, sometimes it's hard to know what the teacher means.
Well, I just so happen to have worked up a little demonstration on questions, and I will be ready for all of you as soon as I find my notes.
Oh, Jenny.
This is an experiment. I hope the results will demonstrate some of the points you're trying to make for the script. Now, you have in front of you 3 tests. You have exactly 30 seconds to complete your test and turn in your paper, and don't start until I say begin. And remember, you have exactly 30 seconds and begin.
Norman.
Jenny?
Time's up. Stop writing.
What?
Oh, I just had one more.
No, you've had your 30 seconds. Gwen finished.
Yeah, but she blew number 3. She didn't say Gwen.
Right.
Oh, well, why don't we all read question number 6 together? Now that you have read all the questions, ignore 1 through 5. Just put your name in the upper right-hand corner and turn in this paper.
Hey, we've been had. What does this have to do with time pressure?
Everything. It's an object lesson in the importance of reading the directions carefully.
She's right, you know. The very first words are, read the entire test before beginning.
But this isn't even an essay test.
Well, that's the whole point. In an essay test, the questions are much more complex. You two didn't even follow directions in this simple test. Need I say more?
Not to me. That's exactly what I did in my last test. Didn't read the question. So, I just saw a phrase that I recognized and started writing.
Seems you made a vital point, Jenny. Well, as Cassie has her last essay test with her, let's have a look at it.
Oh, sure. Here it is. Help yourself.
Okay. This must be the question, huh?
Yeah.
Let's see. Analyze the factors which led to the United States entry into World War I, with particular attention to its initial status as a neutral nation. Now, here's what I do with that.
Hold it, hold it. Why don't we take a look at what Cassie's done with it first?
Oh, yeah, right. Good point. Here, Cassie, why don't you read what you wrote?
All right. But as long as you guys understand that I know this is not up to par. When World War I began, the United States remained on the sidelines. However, as the war continued to rage, America began to be less and less neutral, and finally entered on the side of the Allies. Doesn't exactly get down to business, does it?
You're not really answering the question. It's almost as if you're wandering around trying to find a way to get started.
Remained on the sidelines. Be less and less neutral. You spent so much time on the neutrality part, you couldn't have had enough time to state specifically what happened to change its neutral status.
I see that now, but
Try rephrasing the question so that your purpose is clear, right from the beginning.
You mean a thesis sentence?
Yes, but one for which you can write a shopping list of supporting points.
Okay. Several events and changes in American attitudes caused the United States to enter World War I.
Aha, now what makes that better?
Well, my whole essay will focus on the real issue of the question now. What happened to cause America to enter in the war in Europe? It's such a simple thing, but when I took my test, I ran out of time. I barely had enough time to focus in on the real question.
It is simple, isn't it? But not easy. Just think the difference one word would make to an essay question, especially if the word were compare or contrast.
Or illustrate.
Or in the case of my test, analyze.
Right. Analyze means to look at the overall situation and pick out what's important.
So I wouldn't just recount the events between 1914 and 1917 that affected America's role. I would have to say which events actually caused change and why.
Can you see another key part of the question that might help you understand what the instructor wanted?
Yeah, I see it. It's the last part of the question. With particular attention to its initial status as a neutral nation.
And what does that mean?
That I should begin with the neutrality as a stated position, and that I should say what particular events were important enough to change that neutral status.
Very good. You've organized your thinking by studying the question to see what's required to answer it.
Now, Cassie, do you want to change your thesis sentence anymore?
I think so. Let's see. Several events and changes in American attitudes caused the United States to forsake neutrality and to enter World War I.
As Mayman says, pay close attention to the question before you start spilling out answers.
Hey, Cassie, why don't you start to make a list to properly support your new thesis?
Should I start with my thesis sentence?
Yeah, that's a good starting point, especially since it's one you developed from the question itself.
Sure. The main point is to get your ideas down on paper in note form. List the key events, the important attitudes, so you'll have adequate support details.
You mean take time from answering the question to make notes first?
Yes. You'll save time in the long run, and you'll improve your answer by making it more specific.
Okay. Well, I know I'm gonna need to deal with the sinking of the Lusitania, the Zimmerman letter, the collapse of the Tsarist regime in Russia.
Your thesis sentence mentioned attitudes.
Oh yeah, there was a natural allegiance of most Americans for England and France, and anti-German propaganda.
Why don't you rewrite your thesis sentence from that question again?
Again?
Come on, Cassie. You're just on the verge of getting it right.
Okay. How's this? Sinking of the Lusitania, the Zimmerman letter, the collapse of the Tsarist government in Russia, plus most Americans' natural allegiance to England and France, and anti-German propaganda caused America to forsake neutrality and enter World War I.
Well, what I know about World War I would not fill volumes, but that's a much better start on an essay test than what you wrote the first time.
I think any history instructor would have to consider your answer very seriously. You state your facts and then use them to support your analysis.
Whatever its flaws, it shows that you really do know something about the topic, and you're not just wandering around in search of facts and ideas.
I wish I could take this exam again. No wonder I didn't do well the first time. This is not easy.
No, not easy, but it's worthwhile. You searched the question and found the key word.
Which was analyze.
And then you looked for other clues to help you form your answers.
Which was to pay particular attention to America's neutrality.
And now you're ready to develop each of the points.
To explain why they were important enough to get America involved in the fighting.
And this way, if I run out of time, at least I've used the time I had to get directly to the point.
Good.
Bravo.
Oh, you know what's beginning to dawn on me? That this type of writing takes a certain kind of skill. Wait a minute. Wait. Look at this. They were passing this out on campus. I was going to read it later on.
Oh, it's a flyer about the Learning Assistance Center. Says that they help students with test paralysis to learn skills for better classroom performance.
So, if one technique can help me save a wasted effort, why don't we interview an expert from there for our television program?
And?
And I am just the one to do the interview?
Oh.
Do many students panic in a time test situation?
Oh, yes, that's a very common problem. We'll have many students come to the Learning Assistance Center, and that's their basic complaint, is I panic, I panic. There's a lot of things can be done. In most cases, students are intimidated by the time factor as opposed to concentrating on the test itself.
Are there any good guidelines for managing the available time for writing an essay question?
Yes, and that, of course, is the key, is you must manage the time instead of having the time manage you. You should never just begin writing. You need to take a moment, see the question, and formulate your response. I wouldn't go so far as to say as to make a formal outline. You most certainly, though, should write down some key points that you wish to discuss. Take about 5 minutes to do that, figuring that the average essay test is about 60 minutes long. Use your first 5 minutes in the plan. Then, of course, you can begin your writing from the plan, and the average essay is approximately 5 paragraphs long. This would allow you at least 10 minutes per paragraph. So as you do this, this will still allow you 5 minutes to begin to edit. Never turn a paper in until you have at least looked it over to make sure it says what you want. You, of course, are managing the time.
What is the best way to structure a response?
Okay, the traditional structure to an essay would consist of 5 paragraphs, an introduction, 3 developmental paragraphs, and a conclusion. Now, of course, in the introduction, you must have a thesis statement, and I would strongly suggest using the question and turning it around into your thesis statement. This will then structure the rest of the paragraph. You need to have a minimum of 3 things to say. Each of your developmental paragraphs will be about one of the things that you're going to discuss. And then, of course, tie them together with a conclusion in a summary statement, and you have the entire essay covered. Introduction, 3 developmental paragraphs, and a conclusion. X is 1, 2, 3.
Thank you, Mr. Swindling. This has been a great help.
Well, you're more than welcome. Here are some additional tips that you can take with you.
All right, thank you.
Goodbye, Cassie.
Bye-bye.
Oh, Cassie, that was excellent. I think any student would benefit by a trip to the Learning Assistance Center.
Thank you. They sure could. And did it ever help me?
Hey, you had your essay exam this morning, didn't you?
I sure did.
And did you make an A?
I don't know what my grade is yet, but I think I did all right.
Well, you sure came out of it with a different attitude.
Because I went into this one with a different attitude, much more relaxed. I studied and I knew the material we had covered in class, and I had a different strategy on my side this time.
Mm-hmm. And did you still have the same time panic you had before?
Strangely enough, no.
Good.
I even had time to go back and proofread for grammar and spelling. And I made a few corrections and rewrote a short section before the bell rang.
You must have done well.
I think so, too. You know, it is a good feeling to know how to approach essay tests, summarizing what you've learned and using facts to reach some valid conclusions.
But a good grade would be nice, wouldn't it?
How can I put this? Yes. A good grade would be terrific, but so is not choking up at the thought of an essay test.
Norman? Jenny? Can we use what Cassie has learned in our script on essay tests?
You bet.
Don't see why not.
All right. Then why don't we write a terrific script on essay tests by 5 o'clock?
Okay, guys, don't panic. Analyze her statement.
Write a script.
Keywords?
Terrific script.
By 5 o'clock. Okay, let's get to work.